not enough. The second part of it, wa Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is also a condition which needs to be satisfied for that protection to reach that man. Bishartiha, and then says shurutiha, and there are more conditions. So we come to the third shahada, wa aliyun waliyullah salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, and then he doesn't even end there. He says, wa ana, and I am amongst those conditions. So if you stop at the sixth Imam alayhi salam and become an Ismaili, believing in Ismail, or in other Imams, whatever the numbers they lead to, is no good so long as the eighth Imam alayhi salam is not included in that category. After the sixth Imam alayhi salam, he says, wa ana, and I am one of those conditions. So you've got, in order to get that protection, accept me as the Imam also. And it is only when you do that, that you fulfill that promise of Allah, that if you say La ilaha illallah, you will be under my protection. And hence, every day, after every salah, we turn round to the eighth Imam alayhi salam and say, Mawla, I accept you too. So that ana min shurutiha is also fulfilled in our daily prayers along with salah. So that as our salah may have faults, these three salams with their particular qualifications may help our prayers to be accepted by Allah. In some of our charts, banners, and some of our du'as too, we associate the names of our holy prophet and his holy progeny, thank you very much, with that of Almighty Allah. Shirk of any kind? No, not at all. What I'm not sure is that I've understood the question. In some of our charts, placards, banners, in some of our du'as, we associate the names with that of Holy Allah, with Almighty Allah. We do not associate the name of the Holy Prophet with that of Allah, except in asking Allah to send salawat on him, or asking Allah to accept our prayers because of him. We put in our prayers and say, bihaqi or bijai Muhammadin wa alihi latha. Well, and that is perfectly fine, because what we are doing is, we are telling Allah, you may not wish to accept our prayers because we are sinners. But we ask you then to accept our prayers for the sake of those who were not sinners. For the sake of those who are so close to you, so proximate to you, that if you do not accept our prayers because of us, you will accept our prayers because of them. And for their sake, because we believe in them, because we revere them, accept our prayers. And sending salawat, the hadith says that if you send salawat before you dua, and after you dua, then you make sure that all your duas become qualified for acceptance, because salawat is one dua which Allah is bound to accept. And He is bound to accept because He does that Himself. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu, Allah and His angels, Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Is having a member, alam zari, in the house tantamount to idol worshipping? No, not at all. Not at all. It is not tantamount to idol worshipping, because you do not worship the member. The member is no more than, again, an insignia of the chair on which the Holy Prophet sat to deliver his sermons. And the Imams, the Aimma alayhimus salam, sat on that. I'm sorry, that is the member. What are you talking about? Yes, that is the member. Well, the word is member. That is the second part. Oh, I beg your pardon, it's in brackets. It may well be that it has a meaning which I don't understand, but there we are. Right, so the question would be, is having alams, zaris in the house tantamount to idol worshipping? Whatever is the correct meaning, if what I thought is the correct meaning, I've answered it, let's deal with it in this other respect. No, having alam and zari in the house is not tantamount to shirk, Because shirk is associating something with Allah. As I said, that zari is not associating it with Allah in any way. We know it is the replica of the shrine of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. It has nothing to do with Allah as such, other than the fact that the one buried in that shrine is a wali of Allah. And the same with alams, as we have already discussed. Something behind? Oh, my Lord, there is a... Yes.
This, we might know that this is the rise of the Imam, etc. What the question of what he has in mind and what is normally suspected is that we don't convey the right message to non-Muslims by...
Sorry. Yes.
By having the rules out in the open and revealing them in the open in front of non-Muslims, you might misconvey the message. That's what the fear is.
Can you repeat exactly that without using the mic? Because I think I couldn't hear you properly with the mic.
By having these studies in public and hearing them in public, nobody is going to really understand what's there in your heart. You're not hearing them as representations of Godhead. They are Zaris, we know that, but you don't convey that to the non-Muslims. So non-Muslims will get a wrong impression about the Zaris. That's what is meant.
Yes, well, I will not repeat this supplementary question because it has already been mentioned on the mic. Well, the question I was dealing with was a different one. The question I was dealing with was having them at home, I thought. Yes, in the house. So you're now asking a supplementary to that. That how about having them, how about when we have these alams and zari in public? Yes, when we have them in public, and we do. In Julus, for example, we have the alam and we have the zari. Are we creating an impression that we are worshipping them?
We might be creating them.
Yes. Is there a fear? Might we be creating an impression that we are worshipping them? I sincerely hope not. Because what are we doing with these alams and zaris and taziyas? As far as I can see, and I might be wrong on this, and do ask supplementary questions, or at least supplement my answers if you feel necessary to do so. As far as I can see, we only do one thing. We hold it and kiss it. We don't do anything else. Now, kissing, and this is clearly a flag, that which is a flag is clearly a flag. Most of the alams are flags, even in our julus. If they are not flags, we call them alam. Now, if somebody wants to think it is a god, he better know what alam is. He mustn't call it a god. If he knows it's alam, then ask what alam is, and you'll immediately be told it's a standard. That's all. And alam is also an Urdu word, apart from being an Arabic word. So if it is also an Urdu word, I don't know whether it's a Hindi word or not, but it certainly is an Urdu word. One hopes people, I'm told it's not a Hindi word, people would know that if they know what is an alam, they would know this is a standard which was carried in Karbala, because they know that procession relates to Karbala. So if the public know it's a procession relating to Karbala, and we are talking of an alam, they would know that we are talking about the standard that was carried in Karbala. Now, if we kiss it, you don't kiss God, you know. Nobody does, I assume. Well, our conception of God is that He is not a thing. You can't touch it. You can't. Now, if somebody just wants to be difficult with us, one can only ignore him. But if one wants to be logical, and all we do is to kiss an alam, I do not see how that can be interpreted as worshipping it. Because we don't even join hands before an alam like this. We don't even do that. When we ask for dua, we raise our hands towards the sky, not towards the alam. So I do not see a fear there at all. And the same, I would say, for zaris. Because what do we do? And why do we kiss it? We kiss it because we love Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And when we see something that is called his shrine, and we want to be in Karbala on that night, but we are not in Karbala on that night, when we see something that is portrayed as his shrine, We kiss it saying that if we cannot kiss the true shrine of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, O metal of which this shrine is made, we honor you because you have the honor of today taking the shape that Imam Hussein's zari has. This is all we are saying, and this is all we are doing. And this is done again and again. And even those things that are associated with Imam Hussein alayhi salam are sha'airullah. Are sha'airullah, are signals, are symbols that lead you to the remembrance of Allah. But I mentioned on the first night the matter about fitrus. I was asked to repeat it on some other occasion, and very, very briefly I touched on it again in one of the other sittings. When Fitrus went to congratulate the Holy Prophet, he was told, Fitrus, if you want your wings back, just caress your body with the cradle of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and the wings came back. I mean, if an angel can be told by the Prophet to caress the cradle of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and get barakah as a result of it, why can't we get barakah by kissing the zari and the tazia of Imam Hussein alayhi salam? Of course, that is an argument that can only be given to a Muslim who knows about the birth of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and to a non-Muslim, that would not be within his knowledge. But even then, he would see that we are doing no more than that. And how many times have we kissed things that perhaps can be queried? And in our emotional lives and personal lives we do that, but not touching anything of that sort, particularly we are in a holy place. How about kissing the Quran? What do we say about that? I mean, it's just a cardboard, isn't it? It's just a binding outside, and what is inside are just pieces of paper. Those are just pieces of paper. Why do we kiss them? We kiss them only because on those pieces of papers are holy words. They are words of Allah. And that binding binds the words of Allah, and that binder therefore is sacrosanct to us. We love that binding because it contains words of Allah. And if to any Muslim, whether he's a Wahhabi or not, kissing the Quran is not anything wrong, is not shirk for that matter, how can... I'm sure you can complete the argument there. I do not see that there is any fear, and there is no reason why we should live in whimsical, fanciful fears. We can only live in realistic fears. In your address on the 8th, yes, let's see the criticism of my address. In your address of the 8th and 9th night of Muharram, you said separate adhans were given for Zuhr and Asr namaz. I did, quite right. And also that these namaz were prayed separately when became due. Were Zuhr and Asr namaz prayed separately with separate adhans earlier, as Sunnis do now, or have I misunderstood? You know, you haven't misunderstood me at all. You're quite right. And the hadith is very clear that Imam Hussein alayhi salam asked for the adhan to be recited. He then addressed the army of Hur. Then he asked for the ikama to be recited, and he led prayers at the time of Asr. The two were recited one after the other. Adhan and ikama led prayers, and then he made the second speech to the Hur. Yes, indeed. And that... No, at Asr time. At Asr time, when it was Asr time. Yes, because in religion, there is no doubt that these two times are separate times. There is Dhuhr and there is Asr. And they are demarcated and they are known as to when it is Dhuhr and when it is Asr. And I will not take you into a discussion of that. But the question is, did that actually happen? And my answer is yes, that did happen. Were Zuhr namaz prayed separately with separate azans earlier, as Sunnis do now? Yes, indeed. And have I understood? No, he hasn't misunderstood. And if the questioner implies he or she has not asked me this, and I can therefore say I'm not asked, but to be fair, I go further and volunteer to say that if the questioner is telling me, does this not imply that we can recite separately? I say yes, it does. And there is absolutely nothing wrong in we Shias reciting Dhuhr at Dhuhr time and Asr at Asr time. Now, all Muslims, whether Shias or non-Shias, are allowed to combine these prayers and to recite them together, like reciting Maghrib and Isha together. Different schools of Muslim Islam have different rules on the circumstances in which you can combine them. That you can combine them, all of them agree. But in what circumstances can you combine them is a question of disagreement. In our fiqh, we are allowed to combine them at all times, and so we do combine them. But that is a permission, we have to combine them. There is nothing in our fiqh to say that we cannot recite them separately. Around what time was water provided to the holy kith and kin of martyrs of Karbala? And won't it be apt to do Faqa Kashi on Ashura Day around this time? Won't it be apt? Right, the word is apt. Well, the first question is, when was water given to the kith and kin? Well, these days there is great controversy on that question. There are certain professors, because the problem is that investigation into matters of Karbala these days are not confined only to the ulama and the experts on tariq in Islamic houses. It's gone beyond into universities also, into secular universities. And a controversy has arisen as to whether the widow of Hur ever went with water to the kith and kin of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Well, if that theory is correct, and they did not get water even on that night, and got the second day, are we going to keep the Faqa for 24 hours? I don't know. Insofar as the Faqa rule is concerned, the answer is easier. The Faqa is kept because there is the hadith of the sixth Imam alayhi salam. It is on the recommendation given by the sixth Imam alayhi salam. And all that arose because of this question of fasting. And the Imam alayhi salam says, no, you will not keep a fast on Ashura Day. It is wrong to do so. But you can keep a Faqa. So the question arose, for how long? And he said, up to Asr. You break your Faqa at Asr, because the Imam's Faqa was broken by his martyrdom at Asr. That is the logic behind it. Now, whether it becomes apt to continue up to the kith and kin is a different matter altogether. It is now extending what the Imam alayhi salam had taught. And perhaps there is no need to do that. Now, if the hadith that water was sent, and that hadith is very well settled in my view, I do not subscribe to this doubt that has been raised about the widow of Hur sending water. I do not subscribe to that doubt at all. That doubt has been raised because of the argument that the widow of Hur was not in Karbala at all. I don't subscribe to the doubts that have been raised on that question either. But as I said, with ladies, there is a lot of controversy, whether Layla was there, whether Bibi Sharbanu was there, and now, even in the other camp, whether Hur's widow was there. But assuming she was there and she did take the water, it is not absolutely clear that exactly when she took the water. We tend to recite that hadith after Maghrib because that is the time we hold our majlis. That is all. But the event may well have taken place just before Maghrib, because the martyrdom took place in Asr. And in about a couple of hours after that, before Maghrib, the tents were put ablaze. There is no controversy on that. The burning down of the tents of Imam Hussein alayhi salam took place before Maghrib. So, well before Maghrib, if that took place and everybody was on the sand, well before Maghrib, then it may well be that water was also served well before Maghrib. And it is not possible, in my view, to pinpoint the exact time when that water is sent. When an Imam alayhi salam makes a recommendation of a course of action, he does not make a recommendation in such vague manner. Nor did the sixth Imam alayhi salam as indeed he never did. And his recommendation therefore is Asr time, and I would say that is the time we stick to. I think that deals with all the questions on that particular. Who are the people in today's world whom we can hold responsible for the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam? And what kind of attitude do we keep towards them? I don't think there are people in the world today, that is living people, I understand that question to mean, that those who are living today, I do not see that there are people who are living today whom we can hold responsible for the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. That was entirely the act of people who lived then. But why? What kind of attitude do we keep towards them? Well, if they don't exist, that we don't have an attitude towards them. But there are those people whom we curse even today, because there are people today who are pleased that Imam Hussein alayhi salam was killed. Ma'adallah. Well, the attitude we take against them is a severe attitude. Severe attitude indeed. And we do not regard them as Muslims. We do not regard people who think it was right to murder Imam Hussein alayhi salam as they did. If they think that was the right thing to do, then we do not regard them as Muslims at all. Talking of the Sabi'in, is it compulsory to remove slippers on the day of Ashura? Not at all. It is not compulsory there is no rule as such that we must remove slippers on the day of Ashura. There are places where we can't. We just injure our feet, and there is no rule that we should do that. The reason why people do that is that there was a culture in which if somebody is grieved, he removes his slippers and he removes his amama, his hat. And some of us remove our jackets in grief. So if that is an action taken in grief to demonstrate and feel grief, then there is thawab for it. Because having grief on the day of Ashura carries thawab. And that is the only logic and sentiment behind that act. But it certainly is not compulsory. Is Amale Ashura more important than Julus on the night of Ashura? Now, on the night of Ashura, there is no provision for reciting the ziyarat of Ashura. Amal of Ashura is recommended for that matter every day. But it's makhsus. The makhsus of ziyarah is on the day of Ashura, not the eve of Ashura. So on the eve of Ashura, there is no need for reciting the ziyarah of Ashura. But the ziyarah of Ashura, which you have beautifully inscribed here in this picture that is hanging, the ziyarah of Ashura has many things in it. It has salam in it of a quality that if we did on our own might not be able to present to the Imam alayhi salam. It has curses, and it has spatial curses in it. It has spatial connotation of curses in it. And it is beautiful in many respects. When this questioner is asking this question, what goes on in my mind? I don't know whether this is what the questioner has in mind, but what goes on in my mind is, because what we want to do is to do that which will bring us nearer to Allah. What is it that will be more acceptable to Allah? What is it that will bring me nearer to Allah? Reciting that ziyarah and understanding it with all the beautiful things in it, with all the important things in it, or just moving along with a julus. If moving along with a julus means I am participating in the very cause of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, it has fantastic values. If it means we are making tabligh and inviting people towards the cause of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, it has again most fantastic qualities. And maybe those rewards for bringing people to Imam Hussein alayhi salam are more important than reciting the ziyarah on that night, because the ziyarah can be recited on any other day or at any other time without losing the effect of it. And then you get the benefit of both. But if going in a julus, alas, is a ritual that everybody in the family goes to a julus, and if I'm not a Jew spiritually, I'm a Jew culturally, and so culturally I must go to a julus, I think it carries no value at all. And to that extent, reciting Ziyarat Ashura has much greater value. So I think that saying of the Holy Prophet, Al-a'malu bin niyat, your amal depends upon your niyyah, has great significance on this question and truly provides the answer. When we go for ziyarat, we see... What time do you want to close? Oh, I'm only having 2 sheets. Shall I continue and finish them? When we go for ziyarat, we see that there are more than 100 names of shuhada on the ziri of Ganja Shuhada. That ziri itself is questionable. When we hear 72 shuhada in all majlis, and out of 72 shuhada, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Janabi Ali Akbar, Ali Asghar, Habib ibn Mazahir, Janabi Hur, Awn and Muhammad, Awn and Muhammad graves are separate. Right, I see the question. Well, there are a number of questions in this question. I propose to separate them because it would be fair to the questioner that we answer all those ingredients. When we go for ziyarat, we see there are more than 100 names of shuhada on the zari of Ganja Shuhada. Now, how many shuhada there actually were is also a matter of controversy. There are those who say that there are 120. There are those who say there were 112. There are those who say there were 100, as the questioner says. There were those who say there were 72 in all. So that is a matter of controversy. And if on the Ganja Shuhada there are 100 names, it only means that the person who wrote the names has taken the names from that hadith which has 100 names. So that is easy. But that zari in Ganja Shuhada is very dubious. And I'm saying this with all respect. It is there only as a symbol. It is not where the shuhada are buried, for God's sake. It's not where the shuhada are buried. It is only a symbol made. And I say it is unfortunate because it creates such a wrong impression. And I would forgive the questioner if the questioner, he or she, thought that the shuhada are buried there. The reality is that that nobody can be buried ahead of the Imam alayhi salam. The Imam is the Imam, and nobody can set his one foot ahead of Imam. We can't even say our prayers ahead of where the body of Imam Hussein alayhi salam lies. We can only pray behind where the body of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is. Now when you enter the holy shrine, you find the zari, and let me take you there, and may Allah take us all there as soon as possible. But facing the with our back to the Qibla, I think that's the best way to explain it. With our back to the Qibla, as we face the zari in its front, where there is that inscription Ya Thar Allah in red light. But facing it with the back to the Qibla, if we stand there, then that is where the zari is. And it is in that zari that the body of the Imam alayhi salam lies, with the body of Shahzada Ali Asghar and the body of Shahzada Ali Akbar at the foot of the Imam alayhi salam. The shuhada, therefore, per necessity, unquestionably, were all buried behind the back of the Imam alayhi salam. Now, as you enter, if the zari is here, you see Ganja Shuhada on your right, ahead of the Imam alayhi salam. And it is not plausible, and I use that word, it is not plausible that the shuhada would be buried ahead of the Imam alayhi salam. They were all buried behind the Imam alayhi salam. And it is said by ulama that they were buried, if you take that zari, the cage I like to call it, because it is not a zari, because nobody is buried there. If you take that cage, then the area in front of that cage is where the shuhada have been buried. Because in reality, the shuhada were not buried behind Imam Hussein alayhi salam. They were buried as they would have liked to. As they would have liked to, they were buried at the foot of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So it is where there is the foot of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, then onwards are the shuhada buried, and this is where they stand. And hence we prefer not to walk in that area, because that is where they lie alive. So that much for Ganja Shuhada. But the question, I think, the crux of the question is still ahead. When we hear 72 Shuhada in old Madinah, out of 72 Shuhada, Imam Hussein, Janab Ali Akbar, Janab Ali Asghar, graves are separate. Oh, I see. If the questioner means that they are separate, then they are not included. Now, I have not checked quite personally, because I didn't give importance to that cage. I haven't bothered to check the names, the 100 names of Shuhada, and I'm not sure if the names of Imam Hussein, Janabi Ali Akbar, Janabi Ali Asghar, Habib ibn Zahir, Janabi Hur and Awn al-Muhammad are in that list or not. I do not think it is being claimed by those people that they are in that list. That Imam Hussein alayhi salam has his own grave is beyond question. There is no controversy on that. That Shahzada Ali Asghar was buried with Imam Hussein, because a very small body, usually buried in another grave, was buried with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. There is no controversy on that. That Shahzada Ali Akbar was buried at the foot of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. There is no controversy about that also. Habib ibn Mazahir's grave is also known to be authentic, that he was buried there. Now, Janab Hur, there are a number of ahadith which tend to say that Janab Hur was in fact buried where we go to recite his ziyarah today. And that hadith is fortified by that incident of that Iranian king who said that the ayah of Quran says, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا. Don't think of those who have been slain in the path of God to be dead. They are alive and are they receiving their sustenance from Allah. So he says, look, who more questionably has died in the path of Allah than Imam Hussein alayhi salam? Because there is no controversy on that. So I will dig the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam to check whether he is alive or not. And his wazir said, no, don't do that, because this is now attacking the hurma, attacking the respect and reverence. Exhuming his body like that is showing disrespect to that holy body of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But the king kept saying, oh, but it's very important, because if we find him alive, then we have proved that ayah. And the wazir kept saying, oh, but the ayah is ayah of Quran, you don't have to prove it right. It is right because it is ayah of Quran. And all ayahs of Quran are right, so what is the problem? But this was troubling that king. And the wazir did not know how to deal with it. And hence, the wazir one day thought of a brilliant idea and said, "O king, you know you don't have to dig open the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because you don't want to be accused of fiddling with such a holy body. But what you can do is open up the grave of Hur, because Janab Hur was also a shaheed. There is no question about it. Who can say that Janab Hur was not a shaheed?" So the king says, but what good will that do? And the wazir says, we can prove that he is alive because he had that wound that was bleeding at the time of his death. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam wanted to give a present to to Hur, because that was a guest whom he could not offer a glass of water. And who can appreciate that better than you, people of Mumbai? Because I noticed the custom here that the moment a visitor comes to your home, you first offer him a glass of water. And this is so customary with you. Imam Hussein alayhi salam felt very grieved that he could not offer even water to his guest on a hot day like the day of Ashura, when water would have been most welcome to his guest. To give him a present before he goes, he removes this handkerchief. Because if Shuhada died and Hur would have died, then his body would have, the blood would have clotted and would have stopped oozing anyway. After a while, that is what happens to a dead body. There was no need to stop it bleeding. But he removed that handkerchief from his pocket and tied it round the forehead of Hur, and Hur stopped bleeding immediately. The wazir said, let us go and open that handkerchief. If that handkerchief is still there, we will know he is alive, because no handkerchief remains for 14 centuries or 13 centuries by then. And if that handkerchief is there and we open it and blood oozes out, we will know he is alive, because no blood oozes out of a dead man. The king said, yes, that is a wonderful idea. And they went there. And the moment that handkerchief was opened, blood flowed out of that wound. It is said that so much blood flowed out of that wound that they began to fear that the grave will be filled with the blood of Hur. This is a dead man, they say. We say he is alive, and this is the proof of it. And they the vizier immediately tried the handkerchief, and the king said, what are you doing? Because when you said we could do this, I accepted your idea because I thought I would be able to take that handkerchief. And the vizier says, O king, Hur is too clever to let you have that present which Hussein gave him at his last hour. He wouldn't part with it. And if you did remove it, you can see not only that this grave will be filled with blood, as it is being filled with blood, it will overflow and there will be blood all over Karbala. And the king left that particular grave. So that is another proof that the grave of Janab Hur truly is where we are told today that it stands. Then Aoun and Muhammad, great doubt whether that grave, and that grave that we see as we enter, the grave is Musayyab, the border of Musayyab before entering Karbala, that place which is shown as the grave of Hazrat Aoun is only of Hazrat Aoun and not Muhammad. So again, certainly, what is said to me is many incidents have taken place at that particular shrine. Yes, and I welcome that interjection. Now, Hazrat Muhammad is not in it. That's only the grave of Hazrat Aoun, and the ziyarah there clearly says that. So Hazrat Aoun would be then in the Ganja Shuhada. But for Hazrat Aoun alayhi salam, there are a number of ahadith. One is that he was the son of Hazrat Abdullah. Whether he was son of maybe Zainab alayhi salam or he was a son of Hazrat Abdullah by another wife is also open to question. But let us assume that that is the person we are talking about. That surely is one account. Another account is that there was another Aoun from the progeny of the Holy Prophet, and this is the grave of that Aoun. Another account is that there was an eminent pious person, Hazrat Aoun, and he was buried there. Now, the main argument is the argument that was just given by Professor, and it is that a lot of people have had their hajat fulfilled there. And a lot of people have gone there and kept mannat there, kept nadr. And the nadr have been fulfilled in that particular place. That by itself, I dare say, does not make a grave definitely of that Aoun only. Because other descendants of the Prophet have that quality too. Sayyid Muhammad, for example, on the way to Samara, has that glory. A lot of mannat get fulfilled at the shrine of Sayyid Muhammad. That does not mean that he was in Karbala, but means that he is a descendant of the Prophet. Who has this? Shah Abdul Azim in Rai has that qualification. What is questioned is that if all the shuhada were buried where they were buried, Hur is understandable that he was buried separately. But why and Habib is so close to the Imam? Why is it then that Hazrat Aoun was buried so many miles away from Karbala? So all those questions arise. But assuming for 1 minute that is a genuine grave of Hazrat Aoun, then of course Hazrat Aoun would not be included in that Ganja Shuhada. What happened during the 40 wings duration? Well, the questioner has picked on my colloquialism. What happened during 40 wings duration of Imam Hussein alayhi salam? You say this is one of in your lectures. Please emphasize on this topic. Well, I say this, I think, I said this twice, maybe 3 times, but specifically twice. On one occasion, he was moving on his journey, and this happened. It was, I think, he was leaving Hajr. He was leaving Hajr and moving out of Hajr, and that is when on his horseback he had the 40 wings, and he did in Qasr ibn Maqatil, sitting down on his chair, and in that state of drowsiness, or a short nap, if you like, he sees somebody saying that these people are moving on and their fate is coming towards them. That is exactly what happened. And the Imam alayhi salam says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Shahzad Ali Akbar asks, why, father, have you recited that ayah? And he says, I heard this from a caller when I had this short nap, and in both the hadiths exactly the same words are said. Shahzad Ali Akbar says, Alasna al-haq, aren't we on the right? And Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, indubitably we are. So Shahzad Ali Akbar says, what then does it matter whether we go towards death and overcome death, or death comes towards us and overcomes us? I hope I have now emphasized on that topic. The other one was on the eve of Ashura. Actually, on the day of Ta'asua, it was before Maghrib, before the eve set in, that Imam Hussein alayhi salam was sitting just outside his tent with his head on his sword. Bibi Zainab alayhi salam comes and says, I hear the clamor from the enemies, and the clamor is drawing nearer and nearer. And the Imam alayhi salam opens his eyes and says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Bibi Zainab alayhi salam asks, and he says, I just saw my grandfather in a dream, in this nap, and he says, Hussein, tomorrow you will be with me. So those are the specific matters of emphasis. What is the meaning of bay'ah? We've covered that. Sorry, bay'ah, not bid'ah. What is the meaning of bay'ah? Why Yazid wanted Imam Hussein to make his bay'ah? Who was Muawiyah? Right. Bay'ah is allegiance, what we call allegiance today. But in those days, it was mandatory that people make bay'ah of the king. Because if they swore allegiance to the king, then that was the mandate the person had to become the king, to become the Khalif. If the people did not give him bay'ah, he did not have the mandate and would not be able to become a Khalif. And so it was important that he should receive bay'ah, because that then made him a political leader. It gave him political authenticity. Yazid wanted bay'ah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam because he knew he was suspect. Yazid himself knew that he had no right to that khilafah. He did not qualify it in any sense of that word. And when he didn't, there was only one way he could get it, and that is by forcing people. You force them by bribing them. You force them by threatening them. You force them by saying that you will kill them. The threat being the threat of torture and imprisonment. The other one, of execution. Yazid thought that if he just went to the people, the Madanites and the Kufians would surely question him and question his credentials. But if Imam Hussein alayhi salam made his bay'ah, he would then say, are you better than Imam Hussein alayhi salam? The grandson of the Prophet has made his bay'ah. Who are you not to? And he would be able to suffocate the rights of the people by obtaining the bay'ah from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Exactly what Imam Hussein alayhi salam would not want to allow Yazid to do. Those of you who were in Rizvi College on Shab-e Ashur when I spoke will recall that saying of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, which I quoted, in which he says, in kuntum lam yakun lakum dina wa antum la takhafuna yawm al-ma'ad kunu ahraran fi dunyakum. Those of you who do not believe in any religion at all are atheists or agnostics and do not fear the day of judgment, at least choose freedom, be free, exercise your freedom in matters that are secular, matters of your world, of your dunya. In those matters at least, then be free, if you cannot be free in the matters of hereafter. Because to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, becoming a Muslim is becoming free. That haram and halal that we talk of does not tie us into slavery. It makes us free. We are then free of all human beings. We make sajda of only one Allah and refuse to make sajda of all remaining gods, including money. Who was Muawiyah? Well, Muawiyah was the son of Abu Sufyan. I'd like to say that first, and then say the father of Yazid. Now, it is important to say the son of Abu Sufyan because one of the undoubtedly greatest enemy of the Holy Prophet and of Islam and most ardent opponent of the Holy Prophet and Islam was Abu Sufyan. And insofar as that proposition goes, there is no doubt. There is no contradiction on that. All historians, Christian historians, Jewish historians, Sunnite historians, Shias, are all unanimous that one of the greatest opponents of Islam was Abu Sufyan. In Badr, Abu Sufyan was involved. If you remember what we discussed, not in 1977, but in 1998, we discussed Badr. Abu Sufyan was involved. In Uhud, he was physically there. In Khandaq, he was the person who colluded with Jews. Can you believe it? He united with Jews to fight the Holy Prophet. He was involved also in Khaybar. He never became a Muslim until the time came when the Holy Prophet was entering Makkah. And when Abu Sufyan found that now there is no choice, Muhammad will become the king because he will now conquer Makkah in no time. It's a matter of minutes, not hours. He became a Muslim just when there were minutes left before the Holy Prophet conquered Makkah. Well, he feared that if he did not become a Muslim, he didn't know the Holy Prophet, you see. He feared that if he did not become a Muslim, he would be enslaved. They enslaved people whom they caught as prisoners of war. So he thought he would be enslaved by the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet entered Makkah and freed all the Makkans and said, Kuntum ahrara. All of you are free. I'm not taking any slaves because I don't keep slaves. It's not in the practice of Islam to have slaves. Slaves existed before Islam. But Islam never encouraged slavery. And we don't have prisoners of war either. You are all free. But that is when he became a Muslim. So he didn't become a Muslim truly with the belief in his heart. He always was a munafiq. And he always opposed Islam. Indeed, when Imam Ali alayhi salam was not made the Khalif, you remember, he went to Imam Ali and says, this Abu Bakr, how does he become Khalif? Weren't you the person? Abu Sufyan says this. If you want authority, that Ghadir took place, Abu Sufyan provides it. He said, didn't the Holy Prophet appoint you the successor on the day of Ghadir? What is Abu Bakr doing? And what is Umar doing? What are these people doing? You should stand up and fight for your right. It's a matter of principle, and I will fight with you. And Imam Ali turns around and says, Oh Abu Sufyan, since when have you been that sincere friend of mine that you have come to advise me that I should start fighting for my rights? Go away, I don't believe a word you say. That is Abu Sufyan. Indeed. Abu Sufyan had become blind in his last days. So he would take a person along with him. He went to the mosque of Medina to pray. He didn't go to pray, he went to the mosque. But he gave a semblance that he was praying. He asked his companion, is there anybody in the mosque? And the companion said, there is nobody in the mosque. That companion of his did not see that Imam Ali alayhi salam was there. And the muazzin makes the adhan when he says, Ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Abu Sufyan says, how clever of Muhammad. He has even enshrined his name in the adhan.